because my cats just like to walk under it. And there's nothing I can do about that. So just enjoy, take it as a roller coaster, if you will. But anyway, today is Good Friday, so happy Good Friday, everyone. And today we're going to do some painting. So last week we did blindfolded drawing. It was weird. Things got strange, and it wasn't my finest creative moment. But today we're going for something very different. So we are going to do a proper painting on the theme of Good Friday, of course. So I don't know if you can quite see at the moment, but I have just quickly sketched out Jesus' hand on the cross with the nail through the wrist. So just a disclaimer, if you guys are a bit triggered by that kind of thing and you don't want to see it, then that's fine, click off, you don't have to watch. But I'm not going to paint any blood or anything, it won't be too gruesome. But I just thought it would be a nice kind of recognition towards today and what it is. So I've never painted live before, I don't know if this is going to be good, so we're just going to go for it and see. So I'll move you a bit closer. There we go. So I've got my laptop here, which has a little picture of my hand on it from earlier where I just sort of posed, just so that I can get the colours right, the undertones right. And I'm using emulsion paint, which is wall paint, if you don't know. So perhaps a little bit of a weird choice, but I like it. It's cheap, you get loads of pre-made shades, and they have really cute names, so that's good fun. So let's just go for it and see what happens. So I'm going to start, ooh, I've already got paint on my hand, but I have this really gross towel down here that is just full of like old paint and stuff, so we're okay. So I guess this is going to be quite a chatty video because, I don't know, the rest is kind of like, it's just you watching me otherwise, isn't it? I guess you could play your own music in the background if you want to. I'm not going to bother doing the background of this picture just because I'm generally a very slow painter, especially when I'm trying to do things realistic, so I'm kind of cutting corners, so I'm not going to do the background, and I'm just going to do it a little bit more artsy and unfinished than I normally would. I say all this, but this could be a shambles, I don't know. We'll just sort of see what happens. I also am not someone who has loads of painting paper or whatever lying around, so I'm actually using the back of an old art sketchbook from college, but that's okay. I don't think Jesus minds. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever studied art, or like, are you into painting, or does this kind of thing just like freak you out? Because so many people just so quickly say they can't draw, which is funny because with so many things like learning an instrument or doing a sport, people are quite quick to say that you just have to practice it and kind of accept that. Well, that's my experience anyway. But then when it comes to painting, I feel like people are just very quick to say, no, I can't paint, and that's that. But I actually think that there is a bit of natural skill, but also you do learn it, you do practice it. You must do, because otherwise no artist would ever get better with time. So I might end up sharing some tips and tricks with you guys as we go, but that's just totally dependent on if I think of any. I mean, the obvious thing at the moment that I'm doing is looking at shades. So obviously this is 3D, so this is the bottom where the shadow is, and then this is like a lighter wood. So at the moment I'm just doing what maybe a lot of people call colour blocking. So I'm not really thinking about how good it looks or being too fussy with it at the moment. I'm just trying to get the basics down. just to help me kind of visualise what I'm doing. I'm also starting with the background. I know I'm not doing this background, but in terms of the hand and the cross, I'm starting with the cross as the background because it makes it much easier to paint the hand after and make it look like it's coming forward, and get some nice clean edges on there. Whereas I always used to start with the main bit first because I was so excited to do it. Which was fine, but it always meant the background was really tricky because you have to be so careful going around the edges where you've done all the hard work. I don't really know why I chose to do this particular picture today. I wanted to do something Good Friday themed, but I was kind of, obviously, like, Good Friday is about Jesus dying on the cross, but what that represents is all about new life, and the old life being no more, sins being no more. So, you know, I could have done something like a flower or a baby chick or something, but I thought that was a bit cliche. And I really like painting skin. I think it's really interesting to paint because there's so many different colours in there that people don't realise. So I've already got my blues out, my greens, yellows, purples, all ready to go. So hopefully if you guys aren't that into painting, you might find that interesting. When I was in college, my art teacher would always ask us what colours make a skin tone, and generally people might say like pink, yellow, white, but she would always push us to have some kind of ratio of blue, red and yellow in there, because if you mix blue, red and yellow, do you guys know what colour you get? You get brown. And all skin tones have some element of brown in them. So that was just a good way of pushing us to really look at your skin and look at the different colours in there, because it's not just pink. I mean, my hand's very red here because I've been leaning on it, but like I can see yellows and purples and greens and probably a bit of blue in there as well, especially like on your veiny bits there. It's a bit gross, isn't it? I think it's cool. I think it's really interesting. The thing I tell people who want to learn to draw, I think the most important thing is just learning how to look at what you see and not just, you know, thinking, oh, how do I draw a hand? Well, it's got a big blob in the middle and then 5 longer blobs. Whereas when I was drawing this, okay, I mean, I've really exaggerated that, but when I was drawing this, I'm thinking about the different shapes. Like this is a slightly straighter edge, then it's rounded, then this is quite a big curve, and then it goes in. This finger looks really short, but that's because of the angle. My hand was sort of doing that. So it's interesting. It's not quite as your brain might tell you it is. But anyway, right, so I'm just gonna... How long have I been going? 10 minutes already. Oh my life. I know I want to spend quite a long time on the hand probably, because that's the best bit, so I might have to speed up a bit. I'm kind of aiming for like 45 minutes max. But we'll see. So I'm going to be a bit more sketchy with this now. So on my brush I've got black and brown, just to try and make this sort of more tonal and rough like wood is. Wood's not flat. And this edge, I don't want this to be too blunt. So kind of just scratching in. And then obviously this is where the arm would be flush against the wood, so that's going to have more of a shadow behind it. So this needs to be darker. But then this bit of the hand is kind of raised away a little bit, so I'm not going to do too much of a harsh shadow here. A little one, but not too much. Some of you guys might be wondering, I don't know if you can see, but I've drawn the nail here in the wrist, which some people might be confused about, but the wrist is actually considered part of the hand, medically. And I think I watched a video somewhere about the crucifixion, well, about all kind of crucifixion really, and they said that the nail would more likely be in the wrist, because there's two bones here. Oh, I don't know, this might get a bit gross. I'll try not to say it too gross. But if you put the nail through, basically it won't rip through the hand, so it will hold you up. But that's all I say about that, don't worry. I don't want you guys to just be throwing up during the live stream. Sorry if you guys are squeamish. But I just wanted to say that's the reason why I've done it like that. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. For the time I'm leaving myself to do this, I'm quite happy. But I will actually put a tiny bit of green in it. A very kind of grey tone green. Because, like I say, stuff has more colours in than you probably think. And finally, I'm going to go in with a bit of this one. This is called Soft Cream. I wish I was sponsored by Wilko for this, because boy oh boy, I spend a lot at Wilko getting all these. So I'm just going to put some more sort of lighter tones in as well. If I had more time, I'd probably go crazy and put like orange and stuff. But we don't have that time today. But I'm trying to be humble about it. Because immediately my brain's like, oh, you know, everyone's going to judge me on this one thing that I do, so it has to be amazing. But that's actually not good of me to think like that. So this is a good way of keeping me humble. Right, so for the skin, I'm going to start off with this one, Chocolate Dream, because I think it's a more accurate colour for what Jesus' skin tone would be than going for like that or something. So we're just going to start with this and then build up and add the different tones and stuff. Not that I know what kind of skin tone Jesus had, like was it warm tone, was it cool tone? Forgive me if you have no idea what I'm talking about by that. I guess I'll explain it as we have time. Okay, I'm not an expert on this, but if you look at your veins in your wrist, you can work out what kind of skin tone you have. So if they look more green, that means you have a warm skin tone. Or if they look more blue, that means you are cool toned. Or if there's kind of a bit of both or kind of in the middle, then you are neutral. That's what I've learned anyway from watching YouTube. So now I'm being a bit more careful with this edge and trying to make it a bit more smooth than I was when I was doing the cross. I'd love to know how significant Good Friday is for you guys. Like, if you're not Christian, how significant is it for you? Does it mean anything? Like, are you even bothered? Is it just another day to you? Do you know anything about why it's called Good Friday? Do you care? But also, if you're a Christian, like, obviously Easter Sunday, the resurrection, is a bit more of a biggie. So it's interesting to know if people actually celebrate Good Friday at all. Because I have to say, I don't often celebrate it that much. I think a lot of churches would normally do something. Have services and that sort of thing, or maybe take communion. But I don't think I've often really thought about it too deeply, apart from this year, because I happen to be making a few YouTube videos about it. So let me know if you guys are doing anything special today. I guess it's hard to with the current situation, but like, maybe what would you normally do? Would you have like a family meal? Go to church, take communion? I haven't really talked about the type of brush that I use, and the reason why is because I don't really know a lot about brushes. I just always go out and buy massive packs of them, and I like the small ones as well. And then I tend to just use the same brush for the whole thing, so I haven't changed brushes this whole time. And if I do change brushes, I'll probably only do it once for this whole painting. I like quite a small brush generally, and this one happens to be angled, but I'm only using this one because it's like one of the biggest in the pack, not actually because I'm that bothered about it being angled. My teachers used to get really annoyed at me because all I wanted to use was the tiniest brush, because I was just obsessed with detail. So I didn't get on with them too well, because they wanted me to do big crazy modern art brush strokes, and I wasn't really down for that. So I didn't do too well in my A-level art, because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. Okay, cool. So that's kind of, oh, there's a bit of fluff stuck in there. Let's try and pick that out. Yeah, okay. Cool. Oh my gosh, to me this looks terrible so far, but as I say, I have a bit of pride about this sort of thing. Right, anyway. So I'm gonna, don't know if you can see this on the laptop, but there's a big section of light here, so I'm gonna kind of copy that. My goodness, this is so wrong. Okay, this has to change before I move on, because it's going to drive me crazy that this is not right. That's better. It's okay, we'll fix that. Right, okay. So I'm going to start off with the lighter areas, just because before I think about colour, it's just, there's a large chunk of white there, so I'm just going to get that down and think about it a little bit later. Now, I could use this chalk white, but that's not really realistic for skin tone, so I'm going to use this one, which is Soft Pussy, I think, and work from there. Oh, that's a big thing about drawing eyes as well. Everyone in like high school loves drawing eyes all the time, but the whites of people's eyes aren't actually white. So if you watch more skilled or experienced people drawing eyes, it's actually much more grey or even blue. And when you watch them do it like that, it probably looks crazy at first, but then once they add all the shading, and like the pinks around the eye, then it makes way more sense, and it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. So yeah, normally the process of doing art just looks ridiculous, which is what I always find. So this is really tricky for me because normally I don't like anyone seeing my art until it's finished, because I think they'll look at it and it won't be done, but they'll think that that's as good as it gets, and I'm like, oh no, don't judge me on this, please. Right, so I'm just going over all the light bits that I can see from my reference photo, and this is going to help give it just more dimension, more shape. This bit there as well, tiny bit. Also, at the moment, I can't really remember how I've been holding the brush this whole time. I haven't really been thinking about it. But for this bit, while I'm doing a lot of blending, it's much easier to hold the brush at the end, because you have less control over it, so it's much easier to get to blend over a bigger surface area. Whereas if I was doing something really detailed, I would hold it way closer and sort of, you know, do it like that. Okay, I'm just going to do a bit of the arm here. Now the thing with using emulsion paint, which is probably why a lot of people don't use it for this, is because it dries very quickly, so it can be difficult to blend. So I'm just going back in with some of the base skin tone that I use just to blend this bit out on the arm. But not too worried about blending at this stage. Not too worried, a little bit worried naturally, but okay. Now I'm going to go for the shadows, so I'm going to go back in with this barley black that I was using before. And just go over the creases. Now I am using a big brush for this, so I'm just going to sort of almost dot it a bit, and then I'll come back and blend it. Because if I blend it now while there's too much on the brush, it'll just go crazy. I don't think I ever finished my point earlier. Right, so the biggest tip that I give people is to really look at what they're drawing. So the shadows are in what feels like kind of funny places at the moment, like at the end of the fingertips. And also you'd expect there to be a lot of shading around here, but there's actually not loads. And the shading that there is isn't really like a shadow, it's more just sort of a darker skin tone. I hope all this is making sense. I don't think I've ever had anyone listen to me talk about art for a long time, so I've never really practiced explaining what I'm doing. So I just hope that this is semi-interesting. Right, going back in with the skin colour just to blend that out, just to help a bit. You know what, I've just thought that Jesus' hands probably were super grubby. I think in a lot of pictures they're really clean, but if he was having to carry the cross, like, they'd be full of splinters, they'd be sore, like he might have even fallen down on the floor a couple times or been pushed. So they'd probably be really grubby. Never thought about that before. It's also always interesting to see people drawing Jesus on the cross. because there's always varying amount of abs. I guess that his abs would be quite defined from the way that he was stretched. But, you know, it's just quite interesting. How ripped was Jesus? Let's start a discussion below. Okay, right, I'm going to leave that for now. And I'm going to go in with some blue. Oh, this one's unopened. How satisfying is this? Yay. Thanks, Gary. Looking good so far. I mean, yeah, you're kind of far away, so that's easy for you to say, but thank you anyway. I need to stop being so critical. So we're using pure blue here, but when it's on the paper, it doesn't look quite so crazy. It looks a little crazy, not too crazy. Okay, that looks crazy. That's alright. I've got the skin base colour out at the ready for this occasion. Bit of blue on the fingertips as well. Right, I need some warmer, like red, almost. Yeah, I'm going to skip pink, because the pinks I've got are like really bright. And that's too crazy for me. So I'm going to do a bit of red, but I'm just going to scoop a bit and then mix it before I put it on the, I was going to say canvas, before I put it on the back of my old exercise book. So that's way better to me, but even again, I might put a bit of grey in there first. Has anyone watched any of the Bob Ross stuff on Netflix? I've seen a lot of the stuff on YouTube. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's too much. It's okay, we're not going to panic. I'm going to add blue into it. That's right. That blue really adds something. Thank you, Gary. I think so too. And there's only more to go. I've got a really nice green coming up. It's called Delicate Duck Egg. So I'm really excited to go in with that. Maybe I should show you how this is changing the red colour. Right. Here's my blue. So it's kind of making it more grey and dusty. I hope you noticed that. I noticed that. And the more you practice this kind of thing, the more you will recognise. I don't know if you can see the difference between those two shades. It's probably a bit far away. Right, let's keep going. Otherwise I will be here forever. So many people are talking about this time being such a good opportunity to go crazy and do stuff with your hair. But I think what an opportunity to start painting, because if it doesn't turn out so good and you're a bit embarrassed about it, no one will really know. You're just in the comfort of your own home and you can go back to it as many times as you want. Okay, this is looking better to me. It's much more arty. I'm actually going to mix that with a new colour. This is, oh, soft cream, maybe I did use that before. This sort of yellowy one. This is also, what am I saying? This is also drying quicker because of the type of material that I'm painting on the back of this exercise book. It's soaking up the colour because it's porous, I think is the word. So So it is going to look much more kind of arty than my usual style, but that's okay. This video is not about my skill. It's about thinking about what we're drawing, painting, whatever. Whatever we're doing. But I hope you guys are having fun anyway, even if this doesn't look good. I hope you're having a good time. I am. Okay, I'm feeling happier about this. A little bit happier. Considering what we're painting as well, I think having more kind of harsh unblended colour is quite appropriate. How are we doing? Half an hour? Okay. I'm trying to finish this in 10 minutes. Oh, the thing with this paint though is sometimes it just separates and get really gross. So you have to really give it a shake. It's really sloppy, this one. Oh well. So this is going to do a similar thing that the blue did, hopefully. So another thing I see with people when I watch them draw and they're not confident or experienced drawers, they rarely look at what they're drawing or who they're drawing or the photo they're using. They might like look at it once and then they just go straight into the picture and don't really look back. Whereas I know you probably can't see me. You might be able to see my hair swishing all the time. And that's because sort of every 10 seconds max I'm constantly looking back at my reference photo. Because I do not want to be drawing what's in my head. Right, this is looking cool. Ooh! I've got this really nice colour. This is called Grape. Definitely need a sponsorship from Wilco. Come on, man. Where are you, Wilco? Anyway, so this is really nice and dusty. So I'm going to add this to the darker, more shaded areas. And the more I'm going along now, the more I'm realising I've kind of lost my initial shadows, which I did in the grey, which is partially good because they were very harsh. But also I will just go and back in and layer them up again. So that's another thing with painting. Don't just sort of use one colour and then think, okay, that's it, leave that. Like, keep going back to old colours, keep layering. And take your time as well. Don't worry if it looks rubbish during the process, because that's not how it's going to look at the end. And sometimes you do need to go through the rubbishness to get something good. Right. So with the time I've got left, I'm going to spend about half of it layering up these bigger areas of colour, and then I'm going to do more of like details like the hand creases and stuff, because that is where it's going to come together more. Trust me, please believe me. I semi-believe me. Go away, you weird bit of dry paint. So also at this stage, I'm also correcting any bits I've blended wrong, blended too far, because that is really going to affect, the overall shape. This hand looks really chubby. I think the style of this is very appropriate for what we're drawing, because the hand looks like it's in pain, let's face it. Which has turned out to be a good thing for this. Also, if you want to get a better blend on something, use more paint than I have. I've been very sparing with it, because I'm kind of accepting this is just going to go in the bin afterwards. Oh, that's kind of sad, isn't it? But it's much easier to blend when you're a bit heavier with the paint, so don't be afraid to add lots. Oh my gosh, right, due to my schedule I should be moving on to the little detail now, so okay, fine. Even though I'm not entirely happy with that just yet. But it's okay, it's okay. Right, so I'm actually going to go in with the blackest black that I have. This is called Supernova. And I'm switching into a tiny brush, and I'm going to go in much closer now. So also when you're drawing, like, draw by small sections. Keep looking at the shapes of everything. So when I drew these fingers, I didn't just draw like a line. I took each chunk of the finger, like each section, and I drew that bit individually. Because they're different shapes. And you just have to look closely to see. And these lines as well, that one's kind of straight, but this one is much more curved. And it's really important to copy what you see like that, because that's going to indicate how the finger and the hand is folding. If this picture turns out as rubbish as I'm imagining it will at the moment, then I hope at least you've got some good tips to take away with you. Then it'll be worth it. It'll be worth me downgrading my online reputation. Not that I have one, I'm just making stuff up, guys. Because it's very nerve-wracking doing stuff live. As Gary will know, he watched Gary's live stream yesterday and he was doing the trick shots. At some points it wasn't quite working. Not the trick, like the winning a bet thing. And sometimes it wasn't quite going to plan. And sometimes that's just... or it's a panic, especially when you're in as well. You don't really have people there to sort of back you up in the same way. Alright, there are lots of creases. There's quite a sharp crease here. I have this tiny brush. If you know anything about brush sizes, that's a 0. Is it a 0? Maybe it's a 1. No, it's 0, 0, yeah. But even for me, I'd love a smaller brush than this. Partly because I've just ruined this one because I've left it standing up in water for way too long, way too many times. But here we are. That looks a bit like a basketball. Oh my gosh, I haven't added any of the dark blue yet that I really want to. Oh my gosh. Okay, 1 more minute and then I'll move on to my final bit. promise. This is kind of turned out green, which is interesting. So let's just add a bit of this one in there, just to be really Picasso about it, as that's apparently what we're dealing with. Whether that was quite the plan or not. So let's use that in some of the veins down here, because these are really sharp. There's a really sharp one there. So I'm just going to go around and clean up the edges of this hand as well, because the way I've blended it has been so messy that I have gone over the lines. Right, we're almost going to call it quits there, guys. Looks a bit like a clown to me. It looks like someone's rubbed their clown makeup off on their hand. But it's okay. It's okay, no biggie. Right, so we might leave it there. But the last step is just to draw this little nail, which again I would definitely put more shading into, but time is ticking. And I've been watching Glee, and I quite fancy going back and watching Glee some more. So there we go. We'll just leave that there. So I'll take you off the oh crap. Oh gosh, wait, who we do that? Okay, we're still there. Sorry if you just heard my foul language, everyone. So this is the hand a bit closer. So it's really messy up close, but there's colours in there. It's interesting. I don't know. I'm not going to big myself up. Oh gosh, I'm so red. I'm so embarrassed. Anyway, that's not what we are here for. It's not about my drawing abilities. What it is about is the fact that today is the day when Jesus obviously came down and died on the cross to take our sins. And the fact is, this hand, it should be our hand, and sometimes we can forget that. We can so easily and quickly say, Jesus did this for us. But what does that actually mean practically? You know, let's think about it the other way. If he hadn't have done that, those nail marks should be in our own wrists. We should have the scars because the punishment for our sin is ours. So if you look at your wrists right now, this is what you should see. I mean, this is obviously an awful Black Death kind of mark, but you should see a scar there from those nails, and I should as well. And it's just crazy when you look into the crucifixion medically, what that actually meant for Jesus to go through. It brings me to tears thinking about it, because it's just so it's just crazy that someone would do that. Someone who was totally undeserving of a punishment like that would go through that for us. And yet, because of Jesus, we are able to look at our own wrists and they're completely clean, washed away, just like that. And all we have to do is turn to Jesus and follow him, follow God's way of living. And so many, people think that that's crazy, like, we don't want to be out of control, why should God get to dictate everything we do? And people forget that God is a God of goodness. Like, who wouldn't want to live with someone who stands for goodness and justice and peace and love and relationship? Like, when people really understand what the nature and the character of God is, I don't think they would actually really want to turn that down. So, what an amazing day. Good Friday. God is good. So be blessed and have a fantastic Easter.